again for another day in Bronie's world with my absolutely amazing, gorgeous friend from the USA, Pharmacist Ben.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave it because there's only four of us here screen-wise. I'll leave it on this today just for now and see how we go. And then we've got the awesome Dr. Kevin Grundy from the New Zealand as well with us today, Ben. And
Love
Karen.
Dr. Kevin Grundy. Love
Kevin
Dr.
Grundy.
Kevin Grundy.
What do I say?
Diabetes, that's a huge topic, Ben, and you've covered it so many times, but at the end of the day, it is what everybody is suffering from. And you know, we do have new people, but this recording goes out to a lot of new people. So what's a different spin on diabetes? Maybe more of, you know, I talk about removing foods for diabetes, but at the same time replacing foods. I hate this voids thing. You know, you shouldn't have a void in life because you'll fall back into it. So replacing stuff. So, you know, anything new with diabetes? And Karen, I'm sure, has a whole pile of questions from her audience as well on diabetes.
Yes. Yeah, Karen, I got a few questions, WhatsApp to me. So real quick here. First of all, before I even start, Dr. Wallach has a new book, came out a couple weeks ago, about something called metabolic syndrome. Yes. Metabolic syndrome, as we've talked about, I think we may have even talked about the book, which is a derivative of one of my favorite Dr. Wallach's books, which is called Hell's Kitchen. In fact, Dr. Wallach's got a lot of great books, and they don't get it anywhere near the credibility. There you go. There you go. They don't get anywhere near the credibility, or they don't get near the publicity or the promotion that they should, in my opinion. We don't really talk about his books that much, but they're incredibly valuable. I've been reading Rare Earths Forbidden Cures for 30 years, and I learned something new all the time. That's probably, well, that and Epigenetics are my two favorite Dr. Wallach books. Epigenetics is kind of a walk through the history of medicine, starting with caveman days, going through Sumeria and the Egyptians and the days of Greeks and Romans and Dark Ages, Middle Ages, and all the way to modern times. It's an incredible walk through the history of medicine. And then those are probably my two favorite Dr. Wallach books. But a close second or third is Hell's Kitchen, which is a book on diabetes, on the impact of sugar and carbohydrates on the body. Okay, now there's a health condition that affects almost everybody who's dealing with. In fact, I will say it affects everybody, not almost. It affects everybody who's dealing with a chronic health condition. Everybody. And I know I got a bunch of questions here today. Everyone is impacted by this condition called metabolic syndrome. A syndrome is a disease or a health condition that has multiple symptoms attributed to one cause. Classic case, leaky gut syndrome. Talk about leaky gut syndrome. That is multiple symptoms associated with a leaky gut. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS they call that, is a syndrome that affects that involves a bunch of symptoms that are all caused by immune problems, immune deficiency problems. So syndrome is a bunch of stuff that has a single cause. Metabolic syndrome is a bunch of stuff that has a single cause. The bunch of stuff is metabolism. What is metabolism? Everything. All your chemistry is metabolism. So metabolic syndrome is a syndrome that affects every single system of the body, and it's due to one cause. Now, I'm going to use Bronie and Kevin. I can't see anybody else or can't talk to anybody else, so I'm going to have to use you as stand-ins for everybody else. So when you hear metabolic syndrome, and I tell you that metabolism is everything, so you may as well call it everything syndrome. You can call it, it affects the lungs, it affects the brain, it affects the skin, it affects the bones, it affects the liver, it affects the heart, it affects everything, immune system, everything syndrome, i.e. metabolic syndrome. And a syndrome is when there's lots of things that have one cause. Wouldn't you be curious to know what the one cause is?
Yes.
I mean, you got everything here. You got digestion, you got immunity, you got skin, you got bones, you got eyes, you got brain, you got bladder, you got everything. Now, wouldn't that be interesting to know what the one cause of cancer and heart disease and autoimmunity and skin problems and dementia and movement disorders and everything else you can name? Wouldn't that be interesting to know what that one thing is? Or you see how I'm working here. Metabolic syndrome, which is a well-known, well-accepted disease state, is everything syndrome. It's a one basic bodily breakdown that affects every single system in the body. And of course, we in this room should be fascinated. What the heck is this one thing that causes all these problems? The one thing is a combination of dys, DYS as a prefix means messed up, dysglycemia. Dys means messed up, glyce means sugar, and emia means blood. Dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar, and insulin.
Yeah.
Metabolic syndrome, i.e. everything syndrome, which affects every single system in the body and is associated with every single disease state, has one main cause, and that is disruptions in blood sugar and insulin. Obviously, you got something important here, right? Now, we have a name for a specific threshold of disturbances in blood sugar. Now, I'm going to say dysglycemia because it's a very convenient word. It says a lot of stuff. So I don't want people to be overwhelmed by this fancy word, dysglycemia. Messed up, dysfunctional, disturbed, glyce means sugar, emia means in the blood. Dysglycemia, I'm going to say it a lot, so I want people to, I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable with that word because it's a very important word. Dysglycemia is a disturbance in blood sugar. When you have a threshold in that disturbance, it flips over into an official disease. That official disease, like all official diseases, are copyrighted.
Mm-hmm.
They're trademarked. The medical model owns the trademark. Just like you have Kleenex tissues. I imagine you have Kleenexes in Australia,
Yes,
right? You have Kleenex, right? You got Kleenex and you got tissues. I can say all tissues all I want, but I can't say Kleenex. I can talk about tissues on my blog. I can talk about tissues on my radio show. I can talk about tissues all day long, but I can't say Kleenex because Kleenex is trademarked. The medical model trademarks and copyrights, and I can talk about biochemical disturbances all day long, and I can talk about how to handle biochemical disturbances all day long, but as soon as I say I can handle the trademark name, I get in trouble, and you get in trouble. Yeah. All longevity people should be very aware of making, of saying products can help a trademark brand name. You get in big trouble, the whole company can get into trouble. In fact, Bronie, Kevin, if you were to say something, the entire company could get into trouble. So Absolutely. You have to be very careful with trademarks, but you don't have to worry about that because the problem isn't the trademark. The problem is in the biochemical disturbance. So dysglycemia is messed up blood sugar. We're going to go into that here in a second. I just want people to understand dysglycemia is messed up blood sugar. When your blood sugar reaches a threshold of disturbance of messed upness, we call it diabetes. Now, blood sugar is a measurement of how much sugar is in your blood. Obviously, blood sugar. Blood sugar is a concentration, and it's measured by the amount of sugar per unit of blood. Once you reach a threshold of 120, that's 120 units of sugar per amount of blood. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. Once you reach a threshold of 120, you are a diabetic officially. But your dysglycemia, your messed up blood sugar, occurs way before you reach that threshold. You follow me? This is why it becomes important, because you could have all the symptoms of dysglycemia, but the doctor will say you're not a diabetic, you're fine. But you have all the symptoms because your symptoms show up on a spectrum gradually, on a continuum. They don't all of a sudden just show up. They show up gradually, right? And so you'll go to the doctor with the symptoms, he'll say, oh, you're fine, you're not a diabetic. But what he's missing is you're dysglycemic, even if you're not diabetic, right? You haven't hit the threshold point, but your body's still dysglycemic. Still, the blood sugar is still getting disturbed. And this is very important because a lot of people will have problems and the doctors say, oh, your blood sugar is normal, you're fine. And what he means is you haven't reached that threshold yet. Now, in fairness, the medical folks have gotten hip to this. So they've created a new trademark, a new copyright. They call it pre-diabetes to cover dysglycemia. Now they'll say, oh, you're not diabetic, you're pre-diabetic. See, they love owning, they want to own it. It's not good enough if you say dysglycemic, they don't own that. So now they figured out a way to own a further increased range of disturbances. Before it was just dysglycemia, now it's pre-diabetes. So now, Bronie and Kevin, you can't even say, you can't even cover people who are pre-diabetic. They've extended their reach, which is what they always do.
Yes.
So the important take-home message here is diabetes doesn't matter. It's the dysglycemia that matters. And this is an important point. The reason the modern medical model fails us is because it treats diagnoses. It does not treat biochemistry. You can't treat a name. You can't treat a word. You can only treat a biochemical disturbance. So you can't do anything for a nominal, to name something is called to nominalize, to make it into a noun. Diabetes is not a thing. We are diabetes-ing. It's a process. And we have control. I want this to hit home, to land, because metabolic syndrome is everything syndrome. It's caused by disturbances in blood sugar. We have control. If we go to a doctor when we are dysglycemic or diabetic, if we go to a doctor to deal with a lifestyle health challenge, we have drank the Kool-Aid. We have been suckered. We have been fooled and tricked by a medical model that has no tools in its bag of tricks to deal with the problem. If we go to a doctor, it's not just true about dysglycemia, it's true about psoriasis. It's true about fatty liver. It's true about dementia. It's true about skin diseases and bone diseases and movement disorders. They can't do anything because they're only treating diagnoses, not biochemistry, but it doesn't matter. We can treat biochemistry. It's a lifestyle issue. Now, this is important because metabolic syndrome is the end result of dysglycemia. And metabolic syndrome is everything syndrome. It's everything. This is why I created the triangle of disease. Now, in recent months, I've shrunk the triangle of disease to make it even more simple. I call it the 2 points of disease, which are the digestive system and the blood sugar, the line of disease. It's no longer a triangle. The triangle is if you really want to have extra credit, you can do the triangle. If you just want the basics, it's 2 points, and they lead into each other. The blood sugar system and the digestive system are connected. And blood sugar disturbances, dysglycemia, which leads to everything syndrome, is linked to foods and digestive system processing. So between food choices, digestive health, nutritional supplementation, and movement, nobody ever has to have dysglycemia, diabetes, which is reversible, or metabolic syndrome, which follows. We have so much power, people. The only thing we have to get past is the hypnosis, the programming, the conditioning. Because I guarantee you there are people, I see some people in the living room there. I guarantee you there's some people in the living room thinking in their head, or there's a voice in their head saying, oh, what does that guy know anyway? He's just a pharmacist. He's in America. He's just a wacky guy a hippie guy from Colorado. My doctor's smart. He went to, and I know there's people saying that because that's the programming. Raise your hand if you're saying
there's 19 people in that room listening to that there.
I guarantee you 1 or 2 of those people, probably the other people who've heard me before, I've helped before, I'm saying, but there's 1 or 2 people in there saying, oh, what does that guy know? He's just a kid he's in Colorado, he's a hippie, and my doctors went to medical school, and he's really smart, and blah, 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 blah. Because that's how we think. You're not bad, and you're not wrong. We're conditioned. We're hypnotized. And that's why whenever I do these talks, I always talk about how it happens. Because I want you not to believe me. I don't want to be believed. I don't want to be just another authority. I want you to understand this. I want this to make sense to you. So the main job of the body is to turn food into energy. That's the main job of the body, is to turn food into energy. And it does this through incredibly intricate and ridiculously tightly choreographed and regulated biochemistry. And if you think about a computer chip, I don't know if you know this, but when they make computer chips, they have to wear gowns and masks and gloves, and they have to go into a special room where they make the computer chips, because if a piece of dust, a microscopic piece of dust, gets on that computer chip, it will destroy the computer chip. So when they make computer chips, they have ultra sterile rooms, and the people are completely covered head to toe. So they don't breathe, not even a molecule of oxygen gets on the computer chip, and not a piece of dust gets on the computer chip, because the computer chip.
But saying that too, the computer chip still has failures based on the same reason.
Still, but they have to be super careful, because if you look at a computer chip, the wiring is microscopic, and it's passing through electrons at the speed of light through this tiny little space that's tinier than your fingernail. That's like an eighth of your fingernail. And it has incredible information processing powers. But if a piece of dust gets on that intricate, tightly regulated computer chip, it destroys the chip. Your body is billions, trillions, quadrillions of times more complicated than that. A cell is billions and trillions of times more complicated than that. So we have to be very careful about, if you have to be careful about a computer chip, we got to be that much more careful about what gets into the cells, what gets into the bodies. Well, think about what we ate today, yesterday, the day before. Think about what goes into our bodies. What goes into our bodies to the body is so horrific and so strange and so distorted that the body has to do all kinds of things to purify it. And it does it. It does it incredibly. It has a purification system that allows us to go eat the worst things, to put the worst things inside of our body, but it's limited. It's amazing for what it does, but it reaches a limit. It can only do so much. And over the last 100 and 150 years, we've created a food supply that is completely foreign to this million-year-old body that has evolved over the course of millions of years to be able to process specific things. Every single 100% of the foods in the supermarket, 100%, everything, the lettuce, the chicken, the fish, not to mention the cereal and the candy bars and the canned and processed foods. Even the natural foods are completely distorted from what we're used to eating. So we're subsisting on foods that the body has no idea what to do with. And the number one job of the body is to figure out how to convert food into energy. This is why the digestive system and the blood sugar system, which are the two major reflections of what we're putting in the body, are so critical. And this is why it's so important to understand their relationship to chronic degenerative disease, because the health misery that we are suffering from, the pain, the sadness, the tragedy, the money, the lost time, the misery, all of it comes from what we're eating. And the reason this is so powerful or so important is because we don't want to talk about our food. Now, I'm not talking about present company in here, but there's a block about that. Nobody wants to hear about their food. Nobody wants to hear that. There's a block. It sounds too much like your mother saying, eat your vegetables, Bronie. Make sure you clean your plate. Make sure we hear that and we resent that. And we don't want to hear that. We don't want to know about that. But it's important, because if you have heart disease, if you have a twisted bowel, like somebody wrote to me today, if you have psoriasis, if you have chronic pain, if you have endometriosis, if you can't conceive a baby, if you can't pick up your grandchildren and toss them up in the air or get out of bed without pain or get into the shower without assistance, these represent our points of power, our leverage. And I can't say that more firmly, because while it's important for people who are listening as consumers to have the solutions to these problems and to not suffer with these problems, I get letters that you wouldn't believe that are heartbreaking. And I know that these are situations that are not necessary, that can be not only prevented, but even reversed, depending on how far down the rabbit hole we are. So metabolic syndrome is everything syndrome. Its main cause is disturbances in blood sugar. There's only two ways blood sugar gets disturbed, and that's by putting sugar in or by stress hormone, which is called cortisol. When you're under stress, you get a credit card bill, you have a problem in your relationship, you get fired from your job, your kids are problematic, your pet is problematic, your house burns down, whatever it is, your blood sugar goes up. Blood sugar changes are caused by foods and by stress, the only two things. Now, I'm not going to talk about the stress issue, but we have to talk about the food issue, because it's so easy to change. Now, If you like cake and you like candy and you like sweets, that's fine. There's ways to hack into those cravings. And there's ways to minimize their impact. To hack into the cravings for sweets, you eat more protein. To hack into the cravings for food, you eat more vegetables. You drink more water. And you find something that fulfills you psychologically to replace the pleasure you get from food. Much of the food we eat comes from a psychological desire for pleasure because we live lives of suffering, most of us. So ice cream gives us pleasure. Every time, I know I've said this before, but it really is very important and very interesting. When you have, I don't know if you have Ben and Jerry's ice cream over there. You got Ben and Jerry's ice cream? That's the big ice cream.
Well, they do in Victoria, I know.
All right, whatever kind of ice cream. I don't know what's the big ice cream brand over there.
Peter's or Paul's. Peter's.
You get your Peter's ice cream, right? You take your spoon and your chocolate ice cream, whatever it is, vanilla, chocolate, coffee, whatever you like. You take the spoon and you dip it into the ice cream like this. And as you're dipping that spoon into the ice cream and you raise it up to your mouth, all is right in the world. No
Absolutely.
more credit card bills, no more dysfunctional families, no more job problems. No, as that ice cream is coming into your mouth, the world is beautiful. It's perfect. You don't think about anything but that ice cream going into your mouth. You put it in your mouth, you get it down, and all of a sudden it's gone, and there's your husband again. God darn it, there's my husband again.
That's my husband just walked in.
There's my, oh my, he's still here. So what do? You go back into the ice cream, and for that second, all is right in the world again. You eat the ice cream, and there he is again. So you go back into the ice cream, and you do it again until you've gone, that whole pint of Ben and Jerry's or Peter's or whatever it is gone. And then you know what we do? We rip open the ice cream and we lick it to get every last drop because our husband won't go away. Our wife won't go away. And there are people who literally will rip the package and lick it to get every drop of it. Right?
That's me.
Okay? It's okay. Because when we eat the food, we get pleasure. We have reward chemistry that kicks in. Because for millions of years, the human body is roughly 2 million years old. We lived in the trees 2 million years ago, and we came out of the trees. And for those 2 million years, our problem was a lack of calories. So we developed a reward signaling system that made us feel happy when we got calories. And our bodies are still the same. We get very happy when we get calories. But when you're in love, you guys can remember honeymoon phase when you met your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, and you had that, oh, he's so beautiful and he's so cute. Oh, he's so happy. La, 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 la. You're in that honeymoon phase. You don't eat. You don't feel like eating when you're in love. You don't feel like eating when you're passionate about your project. You don't feel like eating when you're hanging out at the beach because you're getting satisfaction somewhere else. So by getting satisfaction through other places, we can activate the same chemistry that we get from ice cream. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the pleasure. And because food is so easy and it's so cheap, relatively speaking, we go to the food, but we pay the price because our body doesn't want the food. It wants the pleasure. And you get the pleasure from satisfaction, from life satisfaction. So number one, life satisfaction. Number two, exercise. Exercise takes sugar out of your blood and puts it in your muscles. So if you find that you're diabetic and you're eating bread or pasta, and by the way, it doesn't have to be sweets. It doesn't have to be ice cream. It could be rice. It could be potatoes. It could be comfort foods. Comfort foods are comforting because they make you happy. So anything that's a comfort food will do that. Usually it's bread, starchy kinds of things. After you eat those kinds of foods, if you move your body, the sugar will go out of the blood and into the muscle, which is another great strategy for lowering your blood sugar. Another great strategy for lowering your blood sugar, drinking water. Remember, blood sugar is blood sugar concentration, how much sugar you have in your blood. When you drink water, you dilute your blood. So the sugar concentration drops. And you can experience this for yourself. if you have a blood glucose monitor, first thing in the morning, most diabetics know that their blood sugar is high because their blood's concentrated. You've gone to the bathroom a couple times, you've sweated, you've breathed out moisture. So you wake up in the morning after 8 hours or 6 hours or 5 hours of sleep, and now your blood is concentrated. So you take your blood sugar test, take your blood sugar test, you do your blood glucose monitor, and your blood sugar is high. If you drink 3 or 4 glasses of water, you'll dilute your blood sugar concentration will drop immediately. Like that. And not only that, but you'll get better blood flow to your brain. You'll have more energy. You'll be able to think more clearly. This is also true after you eat a sugary meal or a bready meal or a starchy meal or meals that raise your blood sugar. Reducing your intake of sugars by finding pleasure in other places, eating more protein, drinking more water to dilute your blood sugar, exercising. Do any of these require a doctor? Do any of these require a medication? Is any of this too complicated to understand? Do you need to have a 8-year medical degree? Do you need to study anything? This is just logic. So, and then the fourth piece of the puzzle is supplements. There are wonderful nutrients that help the body process sugar. And you want to hear something really interesting? The nutrients that help the body process sugar are found in the sugar plant, in the sugar beet, in sugar cane, in starchy grain foods that produce starches. Foods that raise your blood sugar, when they're in their natural form, contain all the nutrients that we need to process the sugar. But what we do is we clean those out. We get rid of those. And do you know the purest, most refined substance in the supermarket is not in the pharmacy? It's in the sugar aisle. The sugar is purified like a drug. It's pure essence of chemistry without any of the nutrients that you need to process the chemistry. So by using the chemistry, the nutrients that should be in the sugar plant, supplementally, you can help your body process sugar. And there's many of them. The B vitamins are the most standout nutrients for helping the body process sugar, particularly vitamin B1 and vitamin B3. And these are found in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. If you have dysglycemia or a full-blown diabetes, you want to be doing your Beyond Tangy Tangerine with every meal. In fact, you want to start your meal off by sipping on Beyond Tangy Tangerine and drinking it with your meal. There are 2 minerals that are especially important for blood sugar control, and they're in the sweeties. So after every meal, if you're a diabetic or even if you're not, I do it, I'm not a diabetic, you want to take your sweeties. There's a wonderful nutrient that helps your body process insulin, or make insulin, produce insulin. It's called selenium. You want to use your ultimate selenium. And you want to make sure that you're using your MSM, your ultimate MSM, because sulfur is also important for insulin, for the action of insulin. In fact, all of the nutrients that you need to help the body process sugar, the supplemental nutrients to help the body process sugar, remember, these nutrients should be in the foods, they're not, are in the healthy blood sugar pack. And you want to throw in your ultimate niacin, which is also very important. In fact, niacin deficiency is associated with dementia. Dementia is called type 3 diabetes. Alzheimer's dementia, that is. It's called type 3 diabetes. How many of you guys have parents or grandparents who are dealing with dementia? Did anybody tell you, and did your doctor tell you that it's a blood sugar issue and an insulin issue? Dementia, Alzheimer's disease. I used to give my dad had it. He couldn't get off the sugar. I used to give him Beyond Tangy Tangerine when I would visit him in the nursing home. In front of my eyes, he would change. In front of my eyes, the greatest gift you could give somebody who has dementia or a mental health problem or somebody who's caring for a dementia patient is the gift of Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Not to mention the entire sweeties. And because dysglycemia and disturbances in blood sugar are responsible for dementias, skin problems, liver problems, bone problems, autoimmunity, you name it, metabolic syndrome is everything syndrome. You will help control or resolve or reverse, or at the very least mitigate every single health challenge you can name. Every single health challenge you can name. Now, the blood sugar system itself is related to the digestive system. When your digestive system is not firing on all cylinders, bacteria can proliferate inside the intestine. We've talked about this before. It's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Those bacteria will inflame the intestine. There's other things that inflame the intestine, particularly gluten and other components that are found in processed foods and vegetables and fruits. It could even be good foods, can inflame the intestine. The hormone estrogen can inflame the intestine, and fried fats can inflame the intestine. French fries inflame the intestine. Pizza inflames the intestine. Any fried cheeses will inflame the intestine. Any fried foods will inflame the intestine, particularly deep fried foods. When the intestine is inflamed and there's bacteria in the proliferating in the intestine, you get leakages of bacteria and bacterial particles, of food and food particles, and of secretions from those bacteria into the blood. These secretions increase the production of inflammatory chemicals, which will slow down or impair or suppress the body's ability to handle sugar. So not only is the input of sugar from foods and also from stress going to cause dysglycemia and elevated insulin, but also leaky gut, secondary to problems with bacteria. What's worse is, once your blood sugar becomes out of control, it feeds the bacteria because bacteria love sugar.
Mm.
And now you got more bacteria in the small intestine, more secretions, more bacterial particles, more leaky gut, more inflammation, further suppression of sugar control, feeding back to the intestine, more bacteria, and this whole thing becomes this vicious downward spiral. So not only is it important to work on blood sugar control, it's also important to work on intestinal health. Longevity's I-26 is a superstar. I know you guys have it down there. It's a superstar for folks dealing with leaky gut following SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. The SIBO patient should be staying away from specific sugar foods that don't seem like they're sugar foods. And that's the FODMAPs foods. The FODMAPs foods include things like eggplant and bananas and dried fruits. Things that you would think are not necessarily problematic can feed those bacteria. So if you have bloating after you eat certain meals, gas, discomfort, chronic constipation, all of these can cause dysglycemia, and they need to be addressed as well. And these are the areas you want to work with, not just for dealing with diabetes, not just for dealing with dysglycemia, but for dealing with all of the things that follow metabolic syndrome, i.e. everything syndrome, particularly kidney disease and liver disease, both of which are becoming epidemic. In fact, they are epidemic in this country. I'm sure in your country as well. So particularly fatty liver and kidney disease, particularly polyps and cysts and fibroids, all growths from acne pimples to kidney cysts to polycystic ovarian syndrome should all be considered to be part of metabolic syndrome, i.e. everything syndrome. Anytime tissue grows out of control, whether it's a polyp or a cyst or a boil, or whether it's cancer, you want to suspect insulin and blood sugar. You want to address insulin and blood sugar. Anytime cells grow out of control inside blood vessels, causing occlusions, as well as hypertension, as well as congestive heart failure, and God forbid strokes, you want to focus on your blood sugar. In fact, atrial fibrillation and ventricular tachycardias should also be considered to be part of metabolic syndrome, all cardiovascular health issues. And the two leading causes of death in this country, and again, I'm sure it's in your country as well. Heart disease number 1 and cancer number 2 are metabolic syndrome derived. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
The 2 leading causes of death, cancer and heart disease, are metabolic syndrome derived. They're associated with A, dysglycemia, and B, digestive health issues, leaky gut, and things getting into the bloodstream. Why is this important? Well, number 1, it's important because it's so common. But number 2, it's important because these are not medical people. These are not medical. They're not medical. I'm not ripping on doctors. I love my doctor friends. They're beautiful human beings. They want to help people. They want to make a difference. This is not about doctors being bad or being wrong. This is about them not having the tools. It's not in their wheelhouse. Doctors are for when you break your leg, when you get hit by a car, when a rock hits you on the head, when you fall off your bike. That's what a doctor's there for, is to stitch you up and to repair you. And they do a good job. They do a good job that way. But they don't have the tools to deal with lifestyle issues. And if you go to a doctor to deal with lifestyle issues, he's going to give you the tools he has. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So he's going to give you a hammer because he thinks you got a nail. If you got a carpenter who makes the best cabinets in the world and you tell him you want him to fix your transmission in your car, he's going to take a hammer and nail because that's his tools, and he's going to try and fix your transmission, and he's going to destroy your transmission. So if you go to a doctor with dysglycemia or diabetes or metabolic syndrome, he's going to give you metformin, or he's going to give you Wegovy, or he's going to give you Ozempic because that's what he has. That's his tools. Now, in fairness, they're catching on and they're understanding more and more that this is really a lifestyle issue. So now they've got themselves involved in your lifestyle. That's what they do. They got themselves involved in our personal lives now. How's that feel? We can do this ourselves, people. We have so much power to address these health challenges ourselves. So if you're dealing with blood sugar problems, it's not a medical issue. It's a lifestyle issue. Change the way you eat. Exercise. Find pleasure through other means. Hack into your food cravings and drink more water and use nutritional supplementation. Longevity nutritional supplements are superstar supplements for everything, just regular living, but especially for blood sugar issues and for digestive issues. And if you like to read, get Metabolic Syndrome, the new book. It's a very small book. It's very easy to read. And if you really want to read more, get Hell's Kitchen, because that's a really cool book. Doc brings all kinds of historical and archaeological and sociological avenues and approaches to health, and it's super fascinating. So if you don't want to read a bunch, just get the little book, Metabolic Syndrome. If you want to read more, get Hell's Kitchen, and understand that the cost of not taking care of our blood sugar issues, there's nothing the medical model can do. Nothing they can do except force your body to process sugar, force it to process sugar in a different kind of way, which always is going to have a side effect. There's nothing they can do to actually do it naturally. That's our job, and we can do it. You know, I don't know, I think you know your Bible pretty well, Bronie, and I think you read the Bible, right? Kevin, I'm not sure about you, but I think not so much, but I know Bronie does. The Old Testament, I like the New Testament, but there's good stuff in the Old Testament. So you remember Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, right? Yeah. And you remember he didn't get to go to the Promised Land. Joshua went to the Promised Land. Do you remember why he didn't go to the Promised Land?
Because he questioned God. Not
quite, but yeah, you're on the right track. God said the children of Israel, they were always complaining, they're always bitching and moaning. And so they said they didn't have water to drink. They said, why? We're going to go back to Egypt. Well, you took us out of Egypt. We need water. Where's our water? And Moses is like, not again. He's freaking out. So God says, listen, relax. Go over to the rock and ask the rock to give you water. Remember the story? He says, ask the rock to give you water. And so Moses is ticked off. He's just a guy at the end of the day. He can only handle so much. Instead of asking the rock to give him water, he hit the rock. He hit it with a stick because he was ticked off. And so God said, because you hit the rock, you don't get to go to the Promised Land. Joshua's going to go to the Promised Land. So what has this got to do with diabetes and doctors? Doctors hit the rock. They don't ask the rock. Nutrition asks the rock. Lifestyle strategies, dealing with our health challenges through modification of our behaviors is being kind to the body. It's being nice to the body. It's asking the body. The body loves us. The body heals us. The body gives us all of this wonderful pleasure for 70, 80, 90, 100 years of our lives. It heals cuts. It processes food. It helps us deal with stresses and infections and all kinds of sturm and drying and traumas through our lives. It loves us. We want to love it back. A drug doesn't love the body. A drug punishes the body. A drug whips the body. A drug is angry. A drug spanks the body, whips the body with a stick. Why do we want to do this to our bodies, people? Why are we doing this to this beautiful, incredibly tightly organized, regulated, choreographed system that is so magnificently precise at the tiniest nanoscopic levels? And we are abusing it, not only with our lifestyle, but with our medicine, with our drugs, with our surgical procedures. It's so unfair to this beautiful thing called the human body. And I am an advocate for that body. And that's why I'm here. And everybody in longevity, we can all be advocates for the body. And by being advocates for the body, we can be advocates for our patients, as well as our friends and our loved ones, the people who are counting on us. So when it comes to diabetes, dysglycemia, it leads to metabolic syndrome. That's everything syndrome. If you have anything in that realm of everything syndrome, go back to the blood sugar system and the digestive system. It doesn't require medicine. It requires nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, especially eating modification. If we go to the doctor to deal with this, you go to go to a carpenter to ask to fix your car, you're going to destroy your transmission. I told a story. I don't mean to be rude to any doctors because, like I say, I really am I'm a fan of doctors. And if you ever go to an emergency room, there are angels that work in the emergency room, saints that work in the emergency room. Praise God for those people who work in emergency rooms. But this frog and the scorpion were walking along, and they come to a river, and the scorpion says to the frog, you can swim. I can't swim. Let me on your back. We'll go across the river. And the frog says, I'm not going to let you on my back. You're a scorpion. You're going to bite me. And the scorpion says, don't be silly. I'm not going to bite you. If we're across the river and I'm on your back and I bite you, you're going to drown and then I'm going to drown. What a stupid thing to do. Why would I ever bite you? The frog thinks about it for a second. Says, that makes sense. So he lets the scorpion on his back and they go into the river and they get into the middle of the river. And sure enough, boom, the scorpion bites the frog. And the frog starts sinking. He says, you stupid scorpion, what did you do? You bit me. Now I'm going to drown. Now you're going to drown. We're both going to die. What were you thinking? Why did you bite me? And the scorpion says, I'm a scorpion. That's what I do. That's me. I'm a scorpion. Now I don't mean to say my doctor friends are scorpions, but you go to the doctor. You go to the doctor to get your gallbladder taken. He said, oh, it hurts here. Oh, we'll just take that thing out. You don't need it, Or, oh, I have problems with my menstrual cycle. Oh, we'll just take those things out. You don't need it. Oh, your mother had breast cancer. Oh, we'll just take those out. Now you don't have to worry about it. I'm a scorpion. That's what I do. I'm a surgeon. That's what I do. I'm a doctor. That's what I do. So the point is it's not their fault. That's their job. That's how they operate. That's how they work. It's ours. We have to take responsibility. We can do it. It's not that hard. And if you're suffering from a chronic degenerative disease, when you reverse it naturally using longevity supplements, using the health strategies we talk about, using lifestyle modification, not only will you reverse your health challenges, but you're going to add years to your life. You're going to reduce the likelihood of further bodily breakdown down the road. And the feeling you'll get, just the psychological feeling of reversing your diabetes, of not having ALS anymore, of being able to move and get out of bed without pain and toss your grandkids up in the air and catch them, and just the joie de vivre that you will experience from these lifestyle modifications and the psychological feeling you'll get from healing yourself are indescribable. And if you're in longevity, this is what we can provide people with. Yeah. These are the tools that we can provide everybody with. And those of you on the call, if you're not in longevity and you enjoy this kind of stuff, we can help you do it for other people as well. Not to mention for you and your friends, your family and your loved ones and your friends. So metabolic syndrome, serious. It's everything syndrome. It's easy to deal with, treating it like as a blood sugar condition by changing the way you eat, changing the way you live, using good nutritional supplements, and we can help you do all of that, especially for kidney and liver, by the way. All right.
And that lies the problem, isn't it? They're getting them to do it.
Well, look.
Thank you, Ben. That was the most fantastic talk.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, you're right. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you know what? I face this all the time. And parents who have kids or kids who have parents who just don't want to do it, the hardest thing we have to do is watch our kids or watch our parents or watch our loved ones suffer when we know that we can make a significant difference in their lives. But you know what? Everybody gets to be sick. Everybody gets to make their own decisions. This is a message for people. You have the right to be sick. Absolutely. This is a message for people who don't want to be sick. This is a message for people who understand they're not going to get what they need from the standard medical model. And listen, it's just common sense. We got more doctors, more drugs, more hospitals, more protocols, more insurance companies, more devices than any culture in the history of mankind. And at the same time, we're the sickest, the fattest, the most cancer-ridden, the most heart disease filled, the most diabetic. Obviously, it's not working. What's the definition of insanity, Kevin?
Doing it over and over again.
And expecting different results. Yeah. Expecting different results. It's literally insane. It's literally insane. All right. So you want to answer some? I hope that was.
That was absolutely brilliant. I do want to go to Karen's room, but I would like you first of all to answer Gracie's question on the twisted bowel.
Okay, so twisted bowel is an intestinal issue. Nobody just has a twisted bowel. There's no little leprechaun that shoots a twisted bowel arrow at you, and all of a sudden you have a twisted bowel. Twisted bowel is a sign of long-standing colon problems, especially irritable bowel disease. Nobody just has a twisted bowel. Is the person there?
No, Gracie had to work, so she couldn't be on.
Okay. The twisted bowel follows long-term colon problems. The solution is keep the bowels clean. Eat as little as possible, and that's just a general health strategy, is to eat as little as possible. And when I say eat as little as possible, I don't see any kids out there. I can only see a few people, but I don't see any kids.
There is a child in the room.
Okay, so most people are my age or older, it appears, maybe a little younger, but in that ballpark. Eating is for children.
There's a little one.
You can eat. You can eat. When we reach a certain age, we don't need to eat anywhere near as much. And the excess food that we put into our system represents work at the level of the digestive system, and it represents a diversion of nutritional resources to the digestive process. Why do you think you need a nap after you eat? Have you ever noticed that you get tired after you eat? Yes. Do you know there's countries that completely shut down after lunch?
Absolutely.
The whole country shuts down after lunch. Why?
Most European countries do that.
Say that again?
Siesta. Most European countries
siesta.
Do that.
They call it a siesta. You should not need a nap after lunch.
I always thought it was too hot.
No, you think about it. You put food into your system. No, they do it in the wintertime. You put food into your system, and now you need a nap. Does that even make sense? That's like putting gas in your car. Now your car doesn't work, right? You put gas in your body, you put nutrients in your body. Now you should have energy. That's not what happens, right? That's because it costs us energy to eat, to digest, to process. So the less you eat, the longer you live. Every single study on longevity that's ever been done shows calorie restriction leads to increased lifespan because food represents work. And as we age, we don't need anywhere near as much food. Like the little kid, he needs to eat. We don't need to eat anywhere near as much. Now, if you're pregnant or if you're frail or if you're a performance athlete or, there's certain times, recovering from surgery, there's certain times you need more food, but for the most part, we way overeat. Keeping the colon clean is incredibly important for long-term health, just because of the whole leaky gut thing we talked about. Also, liquefying your foods. If you liquefy your foods, you'll have your digestive system will have less work to do. So soups and stews and smoothies are very important. Get a Vitamix. I don't know if you have this thing called a Vitamix. We have it here in the United States. It's a high-powered blender. And make vegetable juices with the fiber. because the fiber is also important for the colon. It helps clear everything out. Also, one of the best digestive health strategies, colonic health strategies you could do is fasting. When you fast, your body, your intestine cleans itself out. Your whole digestive tract cleans itself out. Fasting cleans out the intestine. It also cleans out the rest of the body too in a process called autophagy. But specifically, people who fast will have great bowel movements. Use fermented foods and probiotics. Longevity has got a product called the Daily Digest, which is a must-have for everybody, really, but especially if you're dealing with irritable bowel or Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or leaky gut or any of the SIBO, anything we just talked about. The Ultimate Microbiome from Longevity. The I-26 is a must, an absolute must for anybody who's dealing with digestive health issues. And Dr. Ariaza's Liver Cleanse. We're not only going to cleanse your liver, it'll cleanse your intestine as well, because as we talked about before, there's a major connection between the intestine and the liver. They circle, the fluid circle from the intestine to the liver. So by working the liver, you also support the intestine. For the gal with the volvulus, they call it, or the twisted colon, treat her underlying IBD. She probably has IBD or some kind of severe digestive health issue. For the colon to become twisted, there has to be some major enlargement of the colon. They call it megacolon. There has to be an enlargement. There has to be some kind of inflammation. All of that is following long term. She's got to be older. This happens only to older people, and she's got to have been having this for a long time. So work on digestive health. You guys who are in Longevity down there, anybody who knows Kevin, you have an amazing resource in Kevin Grundy. Amazing. Now he's disappeared. I don't know if he's still there. He can't hear me, but he is an amazing.
He said he had to go.
Okay.
I'm still here. I've just switched over to my phone, so I'm now on the move.
Kevin, I'm just giving you props. The guy knows his stuff inside and out. He's an amazing resource. And not just in, with, longevity for sure, but also herbs and health challenges and,
a lot of common sense though.
It's true.
I talk about, we're just a worm farm and we're the worm. The whole system we have, our whole digestion is all about breaking down bacteria. That's his whole role. Okay, yes. And then we live off the excrement of that bacteria, just like a worm farm does. Just like soil, just like the dirt. You can think of disease like rotten fruit, but the rotten fruit or the rotten leaves, they come down to the soil and the roots. And our intestine is the soil, and the bacteria in the soil and the dirt are similar to the bacteria in our intestine. It's the same idea. Very nice, Kevin. So have that gal work on digestive health majorly. Lay off of foods. She should lay off of any processed foods, mushy foods like a bready, starchy, white bread and cereal. Those are a disaster for the colon. And she's probably been subsisting on it for a long time if she's like most people. And the fact that she's got the twisted colon tells me that there's a lot of underlying colonic issues. Those need to be addressed. Use all the digestive support and toss in Dr. Ariaza's Liver Cleanse.
Sounds like an awesome thing. I do have other questions, but I want to ask Karen if she's got questions in her room first.
Anyone else with questions? The room got a question. Quickly.
Is Michelle there, by the way? Michelle Graham?
No, she couldn't get on today either, but she sent me the message. If we could go on to her question then.
Sure.
No, it's been answered because I was wondering about fasting.
Hang on a minute. What was that, Karen?
What was that, Alyssa?
Oh, fasting.
Oh, Alyssa was just wanting to know, you've basically answered her question, but she wanted to know if a good way to start that is start fasting first.
I know you speak in English, but it's not. I can tell it's English, but that's about the extent of it.
What part did she want?
Is fasting a good way to start?
Absolutely. If you can manage to fast for 2 days, and it's very difficult, but if you can manage to fast for 2 days, you'll feel so good you won't even want to eat. You'll have to force yourself to eat. Most people can't get that far, but if you can get that far, it feels so good you won't want to eat. Yes, absolutely. Fasting is an amazing health strategy. I'm pretty sure we talked about this before. When there's a neuromuscular complex that runs through your digestive tract. It's muscles and nerves. Neuromuscular means muscles and nerves. And this nerve muscle complex propels food down the digestive tract and out of your body, right? So when you eat a food, it kind of pulls it down. It's muscles and nerves. However, when we eat food, that neuromuscular complex slows down. Why would that be when you have food in your digestive tract that the propulsion of food slows down? Well, so you can absorb the nutrients. If it goes through your body too fast, you're not going to absorb the nutrients. That was cute.
Leading the blind.
That was good. That was good. You guys doing a line dance. You got so bored for my talk, you're starting to dance. Okay, so listen.
That was Keith. He's blind.
When you eat a food, the neuromuscular, it's called the migrating motor complex, the MMC. When you eat a food, the MMC slows down so your body can absorb the nutrients. The more you eat, the slower the movement. If you have chronic constipation, it's likely you're overeating. And there's other things too, but that's one of the things. When you fast and there's no food in there, the migrating motor complex gets to work and it starts to clean everything out. And people will notice when they fast, they have these amazing bowel movements because all of a sudden everything's cleaned right out. And you say, I didn't eat anything. Well, that's all the stuff that was building up in you that wasn't coming out. Not only that, this is really interesting. The migrating motor complex has a sound, and you've all heard it.
Yes, the
migrating motor complex is the rumbling in your tummy. When you don't eat, the migrating motor complex kicks in, and it makes a rumbling sound. And we, as silly human beings, what do we do when we hear that rumbling sound?
Well, we think we're hungry, so we eat.
We eat and shut it down. The next time you hear that rumbling sound, that's your self-cleaning dishwasher. It's cleaning everything out. It's kicking in. Let it be. Let the rumbling go. Your body's cleaning itself out. That's the migrating motor complex. Fasting is one of the fastest ways, no pun intended, to clean everything out. Not to mention if you have that leaky gut issue, that stream of toxicity that's getting into the blood through the intestine, that stops. And immediately you feel better. If you have inflammatory issues, movement disorders, Parkinson's disease, rashes, joint pain, endometriosis, fibromyalgia, all of these begin to resolve once you stop that stream of toxicity from getting into the intestine. That's what fasting does.
Okay, the little
Yes,
8-year-old there wants to ask you a question. Ben.
Yes, sir, young man. Is it a young boy? Yes, sir, young man.
It's Ted.
Hi, Ted. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Good. What do you think?
Do we untoxify if we're already toxic?
How do you detoxify? Is that what he said?
Yes,
Good
it was already
question, Ted.
toxic.
I like that question, Ted.
Fasting.
Fasting.
Smart question for an 8-year-old.
Smart question. Fasting is the best detox you'll ever do for all the reasons I just said. It stops the stream of toxins from getting in and it speeds up their release. That's the first thing. Fasting is the best detox a human being can do. We have all these fancy detox programs, detox herbs and detox drinks and detox this and detox that. Stop eating. Best detox. There's also Dr. Arias's liver cleanse, which is another great detox. Get on the Dr. Arias's liver cleanse. Now you don't have to worry about it. Look at that. You guys, look how beautiful that kid is. Look at that magnificence. That's what we can have. Look at that youthfulness. Look at that vigor. We set the bar so low. We settle for so little when it comes to good health. You guys, we can all feel like that. That purity, that goodness, that energy, that healing power. Isn't that beautiful? I can even through the computer, even through my monitor, that beauty there. That's what's possible for all of us. So anyway, Dr. Arias's liver cleanse, fasting, and here's another good one for you. One of the all-time great detox substances are plant-derived minerals. Plant-derived minerals magnetically attract toxins and pull them out of your body. Plant-derived minerals are nature's detox elements. So plant-derived minerals, Dr. Oz's liver cleanse, and fasting. Those are my three favorite strategies for detox. Of course, there's lots of other ones. All the nutrients are wonderfully detoxifying. The liver detoxification processes in the liver are incredibly fascinating. Really, that might be a nice talk that we could do someday. Is the phase 1, phase 2 detoxification, because it's really super fascinating. But I don't like to, I only tell you guys stuff so you can incorporate this to yourself. I don't want to indulge my own fascination with how the human body works. I want this to all be practical, and I hope we've been practical.
Yeah,
so, yes,
that was a good question by young Ted.
Yes, thank you, Ted. Thank you, Ted.
Smart young man. He's going to go far, that kid.
All right.
All right. Can we go to Michelle's question then?
Yes.
That you have there in front of you then.
I have it in front of me. Did you send it to me?
Yes, I did. It's question number 2.
Okay, let me pull that up here. Hang on a second. Question number 2.
So he wants to know what you think of Fenbendazole and
oh yeah, that's right. That's an anti-parasitic that's used for cancer. It turns out that this fenbendazole, the fenbendazole is an anti-worm medicine, anthelmintic they call it, and it actually has an ability to distort or disturb cancer cells. It disturbs cancer cells and thereby kills cancer cells. But cancer is not caused by cancer cells. Cancer is caused by the environment that is conducive to the cancer cells. Do you follow?
Yeah.
The cancer cells grow in a distorted biochemical environment. Real quick, I don't want to go into cancer too much because it's very complicated, but simply said, you have 2 kinds of cells. You have primitive cells. By the way, how many new people are there who have never heard me before? Are there new people there?
Yes, sorry. Yes, there's 4 people, 3 and Ted. Yeah.
And they're still here. They stayed. They stayed. Oh,
Yes.
Ted's a newbie, and they stayed. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
they're all still here.
All right, they're not throwing anything at the screen. Okay, that's good. All right. So there's 2 kinds of cells. You've got primitive cells, and you have advanced cells. Primitive cells are cells that don't do much. They grow and they divide. And if you looked inside a primitive cell, it doesn't have much organization. Its DNA is kind of spread around. It's just it's a sloppy cell. It's an old cell. It's like a Model T. Remember the Model Ts with the crank and all that? It's like an old cell. It was functional for a while. The other kind of cell is the cell that's in animals, humans and animals. Oh, there they go again. All right, got it. All right. So the other kind of cell are the advanced cells. These are magnificent species or entities. They have organization, they have compartments inside them, and they're constantly shape-shifting and rearranging, and they have their DNA in a little nucleus, and they have this incredibly complex membrane. They're super functional. They're super organized and regulated and tightly and precisely choreographed. They can do incredible things. And not only that, but these advanced cells have an ability to turn into functional organs. So a cell, when it gets together, can become a liver, or it can become a bone, or it can become a heart, or it can become a brain, or it can become a skin. But if you take that cell out and put it in a petri dish, it reverts back. It's just a regular cell. And then you put it back in the body, it becomes a liver. It's an amazing thing. And in essence, it gives up its life. A cell that advanced cell gives up its life to contribute to the good of the whole. So it becomes a liver, it becomes a bone, it becomes a heart. However, when cells are not fed, they're starving. And by not fed, I mean they don't have the nutrition they need. When they're suffocated, that is, they don't have the oxygen they need, and they're toxic, they're swimming in an ocean of toxicity. All cells are in fluid. And when that fluid is toxic, one of 2 things will happen. If we're lucky, that cell will die. That's a good thing. That means it's not going to be around. It's gone. However, and most of the time that's what happens. But every once in a while, a cell won't die. Instead of dying, it will go backwards and become a primitive cell. Almost as if it says, you know what, Bronie or Karen or whoever, you haven't fed me for so long. You haven't breathed me. You've suffocated me. I've been swimming in an ocean of toxicity, and sugar is toxicity, by the way. I'm not going to be a liver. How do you like that? I'm just going to go out and I'm just going to divide. I'm going to be like an old cell. Forget this liver nonsense. You want a liver, you guys should have taken care of me. If you want, you know, if you really loved me, you would have fed me, you would have breathed me, you would have kept me clean. You haven't done that, so I'm just going to go ahead and divide. And this wonderfully advanced cell that has become a liver or a bone or a skin or an eye or a brain or a heart or any other part of the body now becomes a primitive cell. And all it does is divide. All it does is eat and divide. And the cell that eats and divides, this primitive cell, is called a cancer cell. And that's what cancer is. Cancer is the end result of cells that have been starved and suffocated and toxified for so long that they have just said, forget you, I'm just going to go ahead and divide and divide and divide. I'm not going to be a liver. I'm just going to be a bunch of cells. I'm going to be a tumor. How do you like them apples? What I'm saying is the cancer is just at its wit's end. It doesn't know what to do. It's suffering because it's starved, because it's suffocated, because it's toxic. So it's reverted back in time and become a primitive cell. Like a bacteria. A cancer cell is like a bacterial cell. It's primitive. It just divides. Bacteria don't become livers. They don't become hearts. They don't become organs. They just divide. They become slime because they're unorganized. And that's what a cancer cell is. It's like a bacterial cell. So these remedies, these cures, these chemotherapies, these things that are designed to kill cancer, that's not the solution to cancer. You know, if the tumor is so big it's pressing on an organ, you might have to do what you have to do. But the solution to cancer is to change the environment that the cell is in. And that's done by nutrition, and that's done by oxygen, and that's done by detoxification, keeping the body clean. Now, I haven't said this, and it's really important because we spent a lot of time here talking about the physical aspects of the disease and health, of the disease process and of health. But remember, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And you got to be firing on all cylinders if you are going to reverse disease or stay maximally healthy. There's got to be some spirituality, whatever that is for you. This is not denominational. Whatever that is, connection to God, the universe, whatever you want. You know, the word religion, relig, means to reconnect. Religion is to reconnect. So we want to feel connected to the universe, to God, to our neighbors. You know, Jesus said 2 laws: love God and love your neighbor. That's it. That's only 2 laws: love God, love your neighbor. But that means connect, to be in love, to love something is to connect with it. Connect to your neighbor, connect to God. That's the first thing. Mental, the thoughts you think play a major role in how your immune system shows up. You know, you guys have all heard, at least if you're doing longevity, you've heard the term epigenetics, right? What is epigenetics? Bronwyn, what's epigenetics? How would you define it? Sorry to pick on you, but Kevin's gone and you're the only one there.
You can pick on Karen. She's in the room.
What is epigenetics? Genetics is how genes get converted into protein. Genetics. Epi means above genetics. So it turns out that vitamins and certain nutrients and foods and minerals are epigenetic factors. They control your genes. So the next time somebody says, oh, it's just in my genes, no, it's in your epigenes. The epigenes control the genes. This is called epigenetics. I'm not making this up. This is accepted science. Well, guess what the most powerful epigenetic factors are? They're not nutrition. They're not food. They're the thoughts you think and the feelings you feel. The thoughts you think change your genes and change your body. The feelings you feel change your genes and change your body. Your thoughts and your feelings are epigenetic. So you want to be spiritually correct, mentally correct, and emotionally correct, as well as physically correct. And people who have cancer, oftentimes, if not maybe even always, are going to have issues on all 3 levels. So to try to take care of cancer or any other health challenge without addressing all 3 health challenges will make you subpotent. you won't have the same potency that you'll have as if you're addressing things spiritually, mentally, emotionally, as well as physically. And by the way, you don't have to be sick to deal with these 4 dimensions. Even healthy people need to work on being spiritual, mental, and spiritually correct, mentally correct, emotionally correct, as well as physically correct. So as far as that pill goes, you're going to kill the cancer cell. Maybe. There is some literature that shows that it does kill cancer cells. These worm medicines, they disturb the internal chemistry of the cell. But cancer needs to be treated as a niche issue, environmental issue, a terrain issue that the cell is sitting in.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Ben. Now,
Thank you.
Gracie had a question from our call 2 weeks ago on the Gold Coast.
Yes.
There's question number 3 there. I just
Yes.
wrote exactly how she wrote it on a piece of paper and handed it to me. We ran out of time.
Okay.
Hyperthyroidism.
Okay, hyperthyroidism is not as often, doesn't occur as common as hypothyroidism.
Yes,
Hypo, for those of not in longevity or not studying this stuff, hypo means low, hyper means a lot. They're opposites, hypo and hyper. So when you hear hypothyroidism or hypoadrenalism or hypoestrogen or hypoglycemia, when you hear hypo, that means low. Low blood sugar, poor thyroid functioning, whatever, hypogonadism. This is hyper.
Yeah, and she asked about 48-hour fast. How often?
Okay.
Recommend more or less every 2 weeks.
All right. Okay, good. So hyperthyroidism is so miserable, it's hard to even describe how miserable hyperthyroidism. It's when you're revved up, you can't sleep, you have anxiety, you're dripping sweat, your skin is oily, your hair is oily, your blood pressure is high. It's the most awful, god-awful feeling. It's heartbreaking, really, to see people who are dealing with hyperthyroidism. Hypothyroidism is bad too, but it's more sustained. It's more long-term. Hyperthyroidism is just god-awful misery. And in fact, because there's really nothing doctors can do for the thyroid, nothing. So you know what the treatment for hyperthyroidism? Take the thyroid out.
Yeah.
Or poison, radiate the thyroid, or chemically poison it with drugs. That's literally what they do. That's how they do it, okay? Hyperthyroidism is technically called Graves' disease, and the cause of it involves autoimmunity. Autoimmunity is when the immune system attacks parts of the body. The cause of all autoimmune issues, whether it's Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism, whether it's multiple sclerosis, whether it's myasthenia gravis, or whether it's type 1 diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis or scleroderma or lupus, there's about 100 or 150, 120 different autoimmune diseases, whatever it is, are always, it's said 3 times, I would say 10 times if I could, I'd say 100 times because I want everybody to hear, always the cause of toxicity getting into the blood. How does toxicity get into the blood? Only 2 ways. Injection, and you can inject your way into autoimmunity. Absolutely. But for most people, it's food. So hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, should be regarded as a food issue, or a digestive system issue and a food issue. So fasting is one of the best things you could do for all autoimmune issues, but especially for hyperthyroidism. And then once you can't fast forever, once you start eating, be very careful what you're eating. Notice what foods make the hyperthyroidism worse and use digestive support. All the things we just talked about, the daily digest, the nightly essence, the ultimate enzymes. We didn't really talk about those, but those are amazing. The ultimate enzymes, Dr. Arias's liver cleanse, the ultimate microbiome, all the digestive support supplements.
So if this person is capable of doing 48-hour fasting,
she'll notice she feels. I guarantee you, she could do it every 3-4 weeks, every 2 weeks. She can do whatever she wants. There's no harm. If she feels tired and she needs something, she can eat. But use your common sense. I guarantee you, if she fasts, has she done it yet?
I have no idea.
I'm guaranteeing you with 100% certitude. I'm guaranteeing you 100%. If she fasts for 48 hours, she will notice a significant improvement in her Graves' disease, in her hyperthyroidism. Significant, much more than she could ever get from a medical strategy.
Oh, that's excellent.
Guaranteeing. Yeah, she'll eventually need to eat and she'll have to find what foods are causing the problems. But in the short run, a fast is an awesome strategy.
Well, Ben.
Yes, my dear.
We've gone way over time, and
yes,
so
we have. Thank you
I
so
won't
much.
ask Tracy's question. I know how to help her. Well, she needs
I'm not
surgery first on her arm, on her shoulder. The pictures I sent you.
Yes, you sent me pictures. All of those kinds of issues, you might not be able to heal them right away, but you're going to make the pain. You can improve the pain by reducing the inflammation. And the food and leaky gut are one of the main sources of inflammation. And also blood sugar is a source of inflammation. I forgot, I didn't even really talk about diabetes. Real quickly, sugar burns things.
Yeah.
Sugar burns things. And one of the things that burns is blood vessels. So wherever you have tiny blood vessels, like in your eyes or in your extremities, fingers, toes, or in your kidneys, you get the blood vessels burn, and that causes the problems. That's called, and also causes accelerated aging when you get the burning in your face and your skin. That's called glycation. Insulin revs things up. It speeds things up. Cancer is a fast, a hypermetabolic state. Things are moving. Insulin makes things move, and insulin is always, excess insulin is always associated with cancer. Excess insulin is associated with excess sugar. So sugar burns things, insulin speeds things up. Insulin also causes things to get stored in fat cells, sugar to get stored in fat cells. So it makes you fatter. And that's one of the reasons why almost everybody will notice as they get older, hardly anybody's the same weight, right? When they get older. When you get older, you always have a little bit of a belly form that you didn't have when you were a kid. That's a classic sign of insulin problems. Also problems with your female and male hormones, especially male hormones. A lot of guys out there who are worried about their testosterone, their maleness, or they're worried about their hair, or they're worried about their prostate.
Yeah.
If you have issues anywhere there, insulin is the culprit. And you can take all the testosterone replacement you want. As long as you have the dysglycemia, you're going to have a problem with your testosterone. So male and female hormone issues also need to backtrack to insulin and blood sugar. Okay. All right, you guys. There's so much to talk about.
Wait on real quick. Karen's got a question quickly.
Yes. Yes.
Someone in the room wants to know.
Just a yes or no. When you're doing a colon cleanse.
Colon cleanses are great. You're talking about colonics? You mean colonics?
Should you use the enzymes?
Colonic and enemas.
Colonic and enemas.
Enemas, you don't want to get carried away because you want your bowels doing the work, but enemas can be good. Colonics, though, every once in a while are amazing. A personal story, I had food poisoning one New Year's Eve, and my girlfriend at the time was a colonic therapist, and I used to not, pay attention. I thought it was kind of silly. But let me tell you, she got me to do this colonic. And, it's not the most attractive thing in the world. I'm not going to go into the grim details of how this is done, but it's not something that, you want your girlfriend doing. But she was a colonic therapist, and I was sick, violently ill. And so finally I said, okay, give me a colonic. And I did it. And let me tell you, within an hour of having that colonic, I felt like a new person. It cleaned everything out. So I am a huge believer in colonics. If you haven't had a bowel move, you have problems having bowel moves, colonics can be important, but you do want to make sure your bowels are doing the work. You don't want to depend on enemas and colonics. But every once in a while, a colonic is very important, especially if you have a history of constipation and not clearing your bowels out entirely. And if you're sick, it's really important. And by the way, I was just reading this article on long COVID. You know what long COVID is? Where people who don't recover from COVID. In the United States, 1 out of 4 people have long COVID issues. There's also another condition called long Lyme disease or chronic Lyme disease. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Do you know Lyme disease? Chronic Lyme disease. Anytime you have a condition that's an infection, like from a tick or from a COVID, and you're not healing, it's sustained, digestive issues. Always the colon, always toxicity getting into the blood. Long COVID. And even people who got COVID severely, histamine and toxins getting into the blood are usually involved. So
That
colonics,
answer your
yeah.
question, Karen?
Yeah, that's the
Was
question.
it? Yeah.
Yes, it did. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well,
They're
God
all right.
bless everybody. Thank you.
Well, let me close this out as I do. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
We'll be back. We'll be back at you in 2 weeks. Thank you,
In 2
Bronie, for
weeks.
everything you do.
And
Bye,
as
Karen.
I ask everyone nicely here in Bronie'sville, stay warm,
Bye.
be empowered, but do not
Yeah,
leave it
thanks,
to my
Ben.
friends.
Much
And
Thank you, everybody.
appreciated, Ben.
clean up your blood
Bye,
system.
Kevin.
Powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. God bless you all. Catch you again tomorrow here in Bronie's World. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bronie. I'll catch up with you later.